All right, welcome back to the Best Foot Forward podcast. What's up, Ann?
What's up, Vicky?
It's me, Vic, from Cestlavic. Let's do that again because I totally lost train of thought again. All right, welcome back to the Best Foot Forward podcast. It's me, Vic, from Cestlavic, and I have here with me...
I'm Ann from Studio Duskus, and here we are with our second part of our pricing episode.
Pricing is such a huge topic, so we decided to do a part 2 that was like answering a lot of the questions. So we're really excited about this topic. So we posted on Instagram in our stories, and like we were asking you questions about it. And you know, this is a hot topic between clients and customizers, our friends, and so we wanted to kind of like answer your questions. So this is kind of a Q&A for pricing.
Yep. For sure. Do you want to start us off with a question?
Yeah, sure. So the most general question is like how you price, but then there's another follow-up that's like what is included within your price. Do you have a question for that? Or do you have an answer for that?
Yeah. And so what's included in my base package? So again, like I do a full decon and recon. When I say full like decon and recon, I basically make a brand new pair of shoes from scratch, right? So you'll I'm cutting out new patterns, I'm sewing the patterns, I'm constructing them to make it an actual shoe. With specific materials. So it's like a full like recon. So what's included basically is the donor shoe.
Yeah.
So a donor shoe typically is a shoe that would buy, it's a stock shoe.
So you buy like an authentic shoe from the company that you want the soles to be made of.
Yep, exactly. Okay. And then so I can harvest that outsole to be used as a part for my new shoe that I'm building. And then so the donors typically included, materials are included. So materials includes the upper materials, like everything that you see on the exterior of the upper, which is like again, like all the pretty stuff that you see. And then it also includes all the inners, like all the shoe components that you don't see that's underneath, that's sandwiched between the shoes. So like a lasting board, a heel reinforcement, a toe reinforcement, foam, and all that good stuff. And
usually when you make a pair of shoes for a client that you've, in a size that you've never made before, you have to get an actual last, a shoe last. So that's like the form made in their size, and like that will change depending on the style of the shoe as well, right?
Exactly. And so oftentimes I'm not one of those customizers, and there are a lot of customizers that have a full inventory of lasts, but I don't, right? Because again, like I feel like every customer that comes to me is very specific in the shoe that they want made, that I have to get a specific last just for them. So I only get new last when I get a new client or when I get a client order that requires a new last. So the last is typically included. The client don't get the last in the end. I keep the last, but then I have to get that in here so I can make the shoe for them.
It's part of the cost.
Exactly. And then it also includes, I also do like a custom packaging for my client. So it's not, when the shoes are done, you're not presented this like $5,000 pair of shoes in like a paper box, you know? So I do a custom like box just for the shoe. And then depending on what the custom shoe is, oftentimes like there's also a design process that's included in my service, which is like where I would upcharge my labor, because that's a whole other thing that we have to get into.
It's so often in DMs, you will talk to a customer, or when you're quoting prices, when you're thinking about prices, people only think about how much time it takes that you're physically working on the shoe. Whether it's you making it sewing, whether you're sewing, for example, or me painting it. There's all this other time that you need to bill that is like you designing it. How long are you sitting here sourcing materials, right? Prepping, you doing your prototype work, right? Those are all billable hours that you know a lot of people don't take into account.
Yeah, what about you?
In my price, so before when I was still doing customs for like a more general, I guess, clientele, like client base, it would include the shoes, it include the design, and then it would also include the painting, prepping, and then, shipping and stuff like that. I don't do shipping separately. I kind of just do like, I round up the price and I do everything all together. So it's literally like from beginning to end delivery. And I slowly, at the beginning, I would say, I would ask the clients like all these questions, and I would try to make it exactly, like I would try to decide with the client exactly what they wanted. But then I started really working on like how I like to create customs. And so it would usually more be on the lines of a theme. So the client would give me a theme, give me, say, like their favorite characters, for example, and then I would put together a design myself and deliver the work. Nowadays, though, like more recently, I am pivoting to working with more corporate clients and taking on projects that are a little bit more, I would say, like concept design versus doing like actual like Disney work or anime work and stuff like that. And in that case, a lot of times my rates don't actually have to include the shoes. I always get the base shoes provided for me. Yeah. And so I'm only charging for labor. And that could be, I say that I start at $1,500, but usually it's like upwards of $3,000 and plus for a job. And that will include the design, obviously. A lot of times with corporate, they don't just ask you for a finished shoe. They will ask me for media assets. So I have to provide Instagram posts. I have to provide YouTube content. I have to provide finished product pictures, which is really important. And it's another thing that I've had to charge for and incorporated into my package, I guess I would say, is like I do have all the camera equipment and the skills and like supplies that I need to take finished product pics, and that's what a lot of clients ask for, actually. Yeah. So that will be included as well, and then of course the execution of the design and then delivery. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me?
Okay, this is an interesting one. When we increase our prices, do we announce it on social media or do we do it quietly?
It's a good question. I'm just gonna be blunt and say I don't announce it. Yeah. My prices, what I tell people are what I've decided that they are, and I'm constantly revisiting that and tweaking it so that it's at a spot where I can make a living and still have clients. So that's something that I constantly work at. And so when you're DMing me, it's gone up. The price has definitely gone up. Yeah. Yeah, and that's not something I can announce because, again, project to project, it will vary. But yeah, like first pair of shoes was $80. When I did my first year on Instagram, I sold my custom collection shoes for $450 to $550 each. And I still, that was not enough money for it. I'm never going to sell my shoes for that price again. Yeah. I'm never going to do that again, and I'm never, it just wasn't worth it for me.
Yeah. And for me, so like it just sounds like, I mean, just to come from like you and I have never been those customizers that, and I like a lot of other customizers too, I think, like we don't announce our pricing. Like it's not something we do consistently to begin with. It's like, it's not something we put up on social media. It's not something I put up on my website. Yeah. Because again, I feel like based on my clientele right now, like I cater to like 1% of the people who wants to get a customized sneaker out there. And so because my client list is so tight, like I'm not trying to sell to everybody. So there's no reason for me to openly advertise to everybody. This is what I charge. Yeah. And so, so for me, like typically, like I don't even get into a pricing conversation until like detail wise, until like I get a very serious inquiry. Which takes some time to get there because most people will hear my base price and be like, okay. Like,
you have to filter out that 99% of people that either don't want to pay that much or that's not what, what they're looking for, or they think you're too expensive. You have to filter through all of that.
Right. And so So it's not like I wouldn't announce it on social media publicly, but it's just not what I did to begin with.
Yeah.
And so, again, like every customer who inquires is, it's a pretty private conversation. Because I'm not going to just take a screenshot and share that with everybody. Like, me, I have my price or whatever. But I feel like my pricing has been pretty consistent in terms of like what my offerings are.
Yeah. You know how much you're worth. I think it's kind of like an individual business thing. If you are a business that I know, I have friends that are customizing simpler designs and they do that in bulk. And I know people who have like boxes and boxes of Air Force Ones, or they release a single design and they can sell like, 50 of them. Then it's a lot easier. It's more straightforward for you to put out your price, right? It's like, oh, this design takes me this long. I know I can make it in bulk. I can deliver. It's like, $300.
Yeah.
$400. Yeah. And then, that's a lot easier. But when you're coming to us, you're asking for not a finished product. You're asking for a service. You're here for a service.
It really is. Yeah. It's totally a service. It's not a product. It's a service, customizing service. And so just so we can kind of have a point of reference too, like I have a lot of friends who will release, like periodically do releases, on their website. And keep in mind, releases are not one-of-ones. Releases are typically a minimum of 5 to 10 pairs of the same exact shoe that somebody out there will own.
Yes.
But these are still custom sneakers, right? Yeah. Because these are not like mass-produced product, by
I still encourage you
company.
to if you like customs, to buy them because their customs are still very special. Yes, it is so limited release, but think about it. It's like, how many can you possibly make? Maybe there are only 30 pairs that exist in the world. If that.
Yeah. So I have friends who will do releases and they will charge anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 for a pair.
Yeah.
And so if you just think about that in that context, you're coming to us for a one-of-one. And I have this policy where I don't let anybody else have the design if you're working with me.
Yeah.
So I can post about it and it gets a ton of likes and it's really popular and someone else asks me for it. I'm like, sorry, you can't have it. This belongs to my client.
Yeah. Which is truly so special for let's say to get a pair of shoes from Ann, it would be, I would say you walk out the door with for $5,000, right?
Give or
more.
Take. Yeah.
And if you were to do that with a company, if you were to design a pair of shoes for a company that would then mass produce it, you'd be paying $500,000. But as a client at the beginning of our careers, if you're getting a pair of customs from an artist you love, you're getting a discount already. Because say you're collaborating with a big company like Nike, for them to pay you to do that design, they have to pay you a lot of money. And that's the kind of service you're getting here.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do I have? I have this question that is, if you have a returning customer, but you've raised your price, how do you approach communicating, giving them your new price, or what do you do? Let's say you started off at $2,000 and somebody bought a pair of shoes from you, full service, all of that stuff. And they're like, I'm coming back to you again and I want the same service. But now obviously your prices have increased.
Yeah, I would actually, I think this is one of those things where we don't remember to do enough. And I think even to some extent, some people have the fear of doing so because they feel like it might push people away. But honestly, the base rule for me is to just be transparent.
Yep.
Especially if it's a good client, I feel like typically I feel pretty confident saying this in my clientele. If my current clients were to come back to me and I increase the price, whether or not it's my hourly rate or my base rate, I feel very comfortable explaining to them why. The reason is because my limited time, that's the resource that I have that's the most valuable, right? Because I already have all these projects on my plate. Yeah. I love to work with you because you're such a good client, but the reality is I physically just don't have enough time to get to you. So in order to make that happen, then, you know, that's one of the reasons why I would up my price. And also just general inflation, right? Like we're all suffering from general inflation and lack of resources and like raw materials. And so explain that, you know, like, yeah, the people that I'm buying from have increased their price, and I have to increase my price because I'm paying more as well, you know? And so I'm not one of those people that would just like increase my price for the sake of doing it. Like there's always a reason of why I do things the way I do, and I'm not afraid to explain that to my client. And again, then they can decide, you know, and they can make a more informed decision versus like, well, you're just charging more now because you're just, you know, like for what, you know? And so like, I think any customers that I have right now, I would love to have the opportunity to explain to them why. And I feel like they will listen.
Yeah. And I think returning customers, a lot of times, this is my experience, they've already received your work and they have an example of like how good your work is, and that's why they're coming back to you. A lot of times clients will come to us and they'll say like, that was like you didn't charge enough, and they're aware of that. So I think they're very understanding in how much we charge. And again, it's like return clients are always, I feel a little bit closer to them because they're people that we've done a full project with, we've communicated with, and you can be more open. Like, don't be afraid to say, hey, this was very expensive for me to do, and your past project took me this much time, took me this many resources, and so I do have to up the cost. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I used to give like, oh, if you're a return client, you'd have like 10-20% off, and that's no longer possible because, like you said, we're just too busy. So the fact that we're squeezing you in is because we really want to make a pair of shoes for you. Yeah, exactly. And I think the way to sort of show appreciation for your returning clients too, like for me, at least what I do is like, oh, I'll make sure I include like, I always love to include like little extra things, like when I ship the final product, right? So like the last pair of shoes that I did, like I included like extra accessories, you know, that's like, not something you can buy, but that's designed specifically for the shoes, or like extra laces or just extra things, you know, to like include in the final delivery to make them feel extra special, you know? I have another question actually. That's like, what would you do? It was a question that was like, how many likes for a free shoe? Oh boy. I remember this in my stories, and I was like, oh gosh. Very relevant though to pricing. So would you do free work for clout? I would not. That's my knee-jerk reaction. I'm like, I would not. I feel like that people know that though. Like customizers, you get this offer. Like I've got, I don't know, rappers, athletes, TikTokers that are like, send me a pair of your shoes and I'll wear them in my videos, you know? And the immediate reaction is like, no, I don't want to do it. Or like, I can't do it for free. Or like, do you want this for free? We get that question automatically in our heads, but there are a lot of reasons for why people suppress it. And they think about other things like, oh, what if I get exposure? What if they wear it and the paparazzi take pictures of it, et cetera, et cetera. And like, you know, but your definite answer is like, no. No. And I think you and I have talked about this before too. It's like, if you and I were to have an opportunity to make a pair of shoes for Lady Gaga or Beyonce or Ariana Grande, love. Queens. Right, Queens. Alicia Keys, like, oh, gosh. Manifest It. Yes. we almost accept the fact going into it that it's probably never going to get seen. That's my honest belief. Yes. Are we okay with that? Yes, I am absolutely okay with that because I love these artists and I just want to be able to provide joy to some extent that I'm able to, because these are people who, like, what do you get somebody who has everything, you know? And maybe it's just like a delightful like moment in their, you know, day. Like that would make my day, right? Because again, like we can
self-talk about like, oh, I can do this work for free, and then again, like if it gets like captured and then them wearing it and it gets published in People's Magazine, and then people are going to be like, but no one will ever know who made those, because it will never get down to they will never list out the credit of like, oh, this customizer made this pair of shoes, and like people like them would never post about it, which I'm completely okay with that, because again, it's like, if I'm a celebrity of that caliber, like I'm going to be so careful about what I put out there, because it's instant endorsement for this person.
Yes.
And people like them probably runs into that all the time, to where like, I can't, it's just,
contractually they can't.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I'm like, and even just like some of the stuff that we customize on, it could be a Nike, it could be a branded shoe. And sometimes like for an athlete, like they might be an Adidas athlete or a Puma athlete, they can't be seen wearing Nikes, you know? So it's like, are we okay with accepting the fact that like, I just want to make a cool pair of shoes for this cool person that I really adore, versus like, what can I get out of this?
Yeah, exactly. And my example is, I have worked for celebrities where I've made shoes for them. And I'll tell you honestly, even though on their marketing side they've posted it, I gained nothing from it in terms of exposure. I gained no new followers. I gained actually no new engagement at all. And it was because our target demo is completely different. So if you're doing something for free just because, oh, I look at this person, they've got like millions of followers, does it really matter to you? Because they're not the same type of people who follow that celebrity or that person, and the people that want to follow you and your work. So you should, at the end of the day, just treat it as if exposure is a bonus, and it's not guaranteed, no matter what that artist says. Like, I've had people tell me, oh, I want to wear it in my music video, and I want to do this and I want to do that. And it's like, you take pictures with bags of money and you can't pay me?
Yeah.
The little bit that I charge, like you would sneeze that money away, And it's like, you wouldn't hesitate to walk into Gucci to buy that bag that you just bought and ask them to give it to you. Like, would you ask them to give it to you? You'd just be like, oh yeah, here's my stack of cash, take it and give me that bag. Yeah. So why is that any different for an artist? Why is that any different for a customizer?
Yep. That's such a good point, Vicky. Like and I'm going to try to like summarize it again. It's like the customers, like, so for your celebrity clients, like if it's an athlete, for example, people who are following them are like sports enthusiasts, right. They're enthusiastic about the sport and this person.
Yes.
And what they're able to do in their sport. Yeah.
They couldn't give two farts about customs.
Exactly. They don't care about custom sneakers, and so it's like, there's no connection to be made.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So I have probably done it for clout in the past, but I would not. Looking back, that's something I would not do, and going forward would never do, because you need to value your work before people value your work.
Yeah. And you need to try in order to know. Yeah.
Oh, totally. And test that out, and do what is good for your business. But again, we're still figuring it out.
Exactly. Yeah. What else?
Do you have any other questions?
Not super pressing. I feel like we sort of answered those like in our previous episode.
I have a question for you. Okay. So the question is like, why wouldn't you, let's say Studio Duskus, release, like why don't you do a collection where your shoes are affordable, like say $1,000, but you release 10 pairs, versus you working for a client and you charging $10,000 for that pair of shoes?
So doing 10 pairs of shoes for $1,000 each, or doing one pair of shoe for $10,000.
Like a simpler design, but at the end of the day, you're still getting $10,000.
So,
why not sell more?
So the variable is, I feel like the 10 customers I do with my own release is not guaranteed, versus the one person that's coming to me is guaranteed. Does that make sense? So if I have one client that I'm working for, I don't know if that makes sense, but so like I have so many things to say about like releasing my own original designs, but I feel like just right off the top of my head, there is nothing I can do for $1,000. There is just nothing I can do from scratch.
Yeah.
That would make sense for me physically and
Do you
financially.
sometimes think about like, oh, how can I make it more affordable so I can sell to more people?
All the time.
Yeah.
And I have people ask me that all the time too, because maybe that's sort of like around the price range that they're willing to pay for a pair of custom, regardless of the fact that it's from me or not.
Yeah.
But I think that is just way too low. That you just can't do it. I can't do anything for $1,000. And also, doing 10 pairs of $1,000 shoes, to me, I just look at that as like, I am no longer a designer. I am no longer a customizer. I am just a production person.
Yeah.
That is like, and again, nothing against like factory workers, because that's what they do. But I am not a factory worker. I cannot make the same pair of shoes for 10 times. Like, I can't make the same pair of shoes for 2 times without getting bored, And
exactly.
that's just me from a creative, person's perspective. And so...
It's like getting Ann to buy an already finished pair of shoes, and instead of taking it apart, you just stitch something on it.
Right.
And then charge $1,000, $500,000 for your work,
right? And I don't feel good about that, because I feel like that's not a true reflection of what I am capable of.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm overthinking this, and again, I guess it just depends. If my goal is to make more money quickly versus sorting through 50 people just to get 1 or 2 clients, then maybe that's what I got to do. I got to figure it out.
Right.
Which I think I can if I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
But I think based on my current workflow and the things that I'm interested in doing, I love experimenting. I love doing things that I've never done before. I've never seen other people do before. And so...
Allergic to easy.
Thank you. Gonna make that into a t-shirt. So I just rather work with one client and create something totally unique that cannot be recreated. And I think, again, this goes back to the conversation about when you're coming to me, we're creating something that's one of one.
Yeah.
And I don't want to mass produce something.
Yeah. I mean, I've done mass production in the past. I can paint Hogwarts without a reference image now.
Which is incredible. Can we just say?
I can literally be oh, there's that tower, that's how high it is, that there's the other one, windows,
That's bananas.
Because I have done so many pairs of those.
Yeah.
So I've done production work. I have been that sweatshop worker that has sat there and underpaid, pumped out shoes for Christmas, and I just don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
And I think I realized at the end of the day how many pairs of shoes I could possibly make in a year. And it's not that many, right? And so if we're thinking I want this to be a career, I want this to be able to, pay my rent, eventually buy me a house, not lots of money, but be sustainable. I can't make 100 pairs of shoes with my own hands, painting every single one of them. It's not possible. I mean, I can color block, but at the same time, a lot of people can color block.
Yep.
I can teach you how to color block in an hour, you can do a very good job color blocking, but that is low hanging fruit that I think is very saturated right now. So for me, it's the reason why I want to make my things more and more complex so that they're not replicatable is because I feel at the end of the day, that's what brings me joy as an artist. And that's the only way for me as part of my business to grow it, is to be able to charge that much more. Yeah. And I don't know if I told you, with my ice cream collection, I simplified that design because I knew that it had to be released as a collection. It has to, lots of pairs had to be available.
Yeah.
So I opted for a very simple design. Before I even delivered my first pair to a client that paid, people had already replicated it.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy. Crazy.
It doesn't bother me that people copy work or are inspired by it. But the one thing that hit me so hard was when somebody messaged me in my DMs, was hey, I hope you don't mind, but I did your design and it actually looked good, Ann.
If I'm being fair right now.
Yeah. If I'm being fair, I was oh my God, that is my design. But and in general, my designs are not the easiest because I like doing it. Like I make it that way.
Yeah.
And it's freehanded, so it's not even like you can stencil it. You could probably stencil a better job, but like, you know, do you know what I mean? Like I've worked to the point where I'm very comfortable and like confident in my skills. But like when this person did it so well that I would like zoom into the photo, you know how we are, like we're like, oh, look at those lines, like are they clean, are the edges nice, did they paint the edges, you know? And I looked at it in a DM photo, to be fair, but I was like, oh crap, like that's pretty good, you know? And then I realized that what I really want to do is do works that do get more and more complicated, and you can charge more and more and more, because right now I'm like, I dare you to replicate it. Like, do it. If you do it, I will give you an applause and I will give you props for taking on that design. I feel like yours too. It's like, I'm making custom leather. Like, you want to replicate it? You want to make a fake of that? Or like, you know, you want to copy it? Go and make that custom leather and then build the shoes from scratch and do all the steps that I do and try to even get close to that quality. So I feel like that's what I take pride in, is like creating that experience for a client. And that's why it gets more and more expensive and more complicated, and to do less, because I cannot physically do more. Yeah.
And I feel like that's the question that we have to ask ourselves all the time. What differentiates us from other customizers? Why would people want to come to us versus somebody else? And so can I just touch on this real quick? You and I both have had this particular marketplace reach out to us.
Yes.
And asking us to basically create a design.
This is juicy.
For their marketplace. So we can basically, again, drop an exclusive design with them and then sell it on their platform.
Yeah.
And then both of our conversations sort of, and you can add to this, Vicky, we sort of decided that, like, as much as we would love to, because potentially there's an exposure opportunity.
There's a wider audience that they can reach. Yeah.
Right, to more people. But I, like, so there is also, like, you know, we talked about, like, sort of like, what's the sweet price point for somebody on this platform who are willing to pay for a custom pair of shoes?
Yeah.
And when I saw what that price is, I was like, it was an easy decision for me. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
There's no way I can mass produce anything for this price.
Yeah.
And so in the end, it was like, as much as I would love to do it, because a lot of my homies were on there, you know, so it was like, part of me was feeling a little FOMO.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, it just didn't make sense for me.
Yeah.
You know, and not that I'm being greedy, but it's like, I physically cannot do that type of work. I'm losing money before I even start, you know, if I agree to this term and only sell it for this much, because that's how much you're telling me would resonate with your clientele. And so I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah. And this is part of business strategy, because we're thinking beyond that. You can take this job once. It sets you back in terms of time, right? It's going to set you back a couple of months, because you have to design it, you have to create it, like make enough sizes or whatever, get ready for the drop. And then it stops you from doing other things. So it's an opportunity cost as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny that both of us, somebody reached out to us separately, and both of us entertained the whole idea. You know, we had that meeting with this person and we were like, no, it's not for me. It's not, like, I've been through that whole Etsy phase, you know, like in the past. And this is like very similar. There are a lot of platforms now that are new that are trying to push that, like selling customs as releases. And it just doesn't work with our business model and what we're trying to do now.
Yeah. So
and they're charging too little.
Way too little.
Yeah.
You know, and
they literally told us, like, oh, that's the sweet spot, because nobody's going to pay that much.
Right.
And we're like, okay, well, then we're not going to make it, because that's how much we have to charge.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, so you're giving me no reason to work with you, because I can do this on my own and I can charge a lot more.
Exactly.
And so, and this kind of ties back to, like, okay, would I rather sell 10 pairs for $500 or one pair for $5,000?
Exactly.
I'd rather do one pair for $5,000.
Same. Yeah.
So.
And that I think that's that's pretty much where we are right now with pricing and navigating. I think it's important to know that you're going to find your people out there. A lot of customizers don't charge that much because they think nobody's going to buy it. Are you trying to sell to those people? Are those the people that you want to buy your shoes? Or are you trying to, build up your own name, do the designs that you truly passionately love? Then you have to be really selective with the clients that you choose. And you can, Ann is able to find that 1% that really appreciates your craft and is willing to invest in your piece, right? And I, for example, have been able to time and time again, companies are showing me that this is possible, but you have to turn down those low ball offers and those tempting opportunities that give you exposure but no money. You have to actively turn those down.
Yeah. But then also be realistic about where you're at as an artist, and be honest with yourself with your abilities to execute.
Yes.
And don't try to charge somebody that.
So true. Because, and I'm going to say it again, Ann is a very experienced designer. You've been doing this for over a decade, right? And you went to fashion school. You are knowledgeable and talented and skilled in that. And I cannot praise you more for your talent. And so that's the caliber that you're charging for, which I still think she's undercharging for. But what I'm saying is your price is very much justified. And so for somebody who just went and took a course, I learned how to sew this patch on, I don't know if it would be justified for them to charge the same amount that you would.
And then also
for the craftsmanship that they
you're very
offer.
Nice for saying that. And then but then also just to say that yes, we can talk about pricing all day long. We can talk about all these variables. At the end of the day, this is not the end all be all. This is not set in stone. Our pricing and as everyone else's pricing should reflect what the current market demands.
Yes. Totally.
And so it's going to fluctuate and it's okay. I think a lot of the times us as sneaker customizers discount that before our customers actually discount that.
Yes.
And so then you're basically putting yourself in a bind. And so don't do that.
Yeah.
And we're lucky that we have each other to kind of check each other. Vicky, you're undercharging.
Yeah. Totally. All the time.
And so get yourself one of those too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much everything we have today. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's it. And it's really good. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to DM us because this is a good time for us to chop it all up and talk about it. And yeah, so if you haven't watched the pricing episode, make sure you go and check that one out. And thank you so much for watching.
Yay, thank you. Have a good one.
Bye. Is it better to publicly display your price or not?
Vicky, can we stop real quick?
Did we not record?
No. I took a sip of my coffee and I was choking on it. I was trying to hold it in. Are we recording?
Yeah. Anything that you say is going to be on record and will potentially be put into my stories.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. I just restarted.